Jake Suit. Finn is walking around the tree fort in the Jake suit, letting BMO pummel him before jumping off the roof and landing on Jake's doggy bags. The next day, Jake is extremely sore from Finn's roughhousing, but when he asks Finn to go easier on him next time, Finn says that pain's not a big deal. So the two have a bet, where Jake will take over Finn's body to make him experience pain until Finn gives up. But Jake struggles to control Finn's body easily and can't punch himself hard enough, deciding to inflict other kinds of pain on Finn instead. He starts by making Finn read a boring book, though Jake falls asleep and Finn enjoys it. He tries to bake Finn's favorite food and eat it in front of him, but Finn doesn't mind this either. Then he takes Finn to a dinner at Flame Princess's house, where he strips him down to his underwear and sings the Buff Baby song in front of them all, though Flame Princess sees a tiny Jake in Finn's mouth and learns what's going on, wishing Finn good luck. Jake asks Lady for advice on how to make Finn lose when TV suggests jumping into a volcano. Jake's about to lower both of them into the lava, but Finn is still intent on taking the lava pain, and Jake gives up. But Finn's not satisfied, and he jumps into the Jake suit to dive into the lava anyway. The two wake up in the Candy Kingdom Hospital in full body casts, where the clown nurses enter the room as Finn screams. Most of fear is the fear of fear, the rest is the actual risk of danger one anticipates. A majority of what hurts us is internal pain from worrying about something in the future, even the very near future, and so we end up suffering twice, once before it happens and once when it happens. Finn is unique in the fact that he doesn't fear either the anticipation nor the payoff for that anticipation. He has no immediate sense of danger due to the fact that he actively welcomes pain and injury, as he considers them kisses from the universe. This is opposed to something like, say, a kiss from a clown, or a kiss from the ocean. It really is just the risk of injury that he likes, which tracks for his character as we saw him initially fall for Flame Princess after she slapped him. Finn's a bit of a masochist, but maybe he's just a character from a series that borrows a lot from video games and other RPGs. In a video game, your character can be on the verge of death without slowing down, and Finn mentally operates the same way. Why be afraid of something that hasn't killed you yet? Be more. BMO is entertaining themselves by deleting random files from their hard drive before carelessly deleting their core system files and becoming very sick. Finn and Jake offer to use BMO's emergency maintenance routines to return to the Mo factory in the Badlands, where they disguise themselves as various Mo's to get a tour. The factory is largely in ruins, though they do manage to jump off Demo's tour tram, where they find drive reports for various Mo's, though they only see Cmo, Demo, and so on. So Finn, Jake, and BMO disguise themselves as security guards, SMO, to get close enough to another guard to get his schematics, where they find that BMO's drivers are held deep beneath the factory. The trio is chased further and further down by Demo and the SMOs before landing in an open room where BMO finally reveals themselves. Everybody stops what they're doing as a human-ish figure is carried over, introducing himself as Mo, the creator of the Mo line of computers. He created BMO as a companion to raise his son, but never had children of his own, releasing BMO into the wilderness to hopefully raise someone else's son. BMO is repaired, hugging their father as Mo opens a hatch in the floor to show off a city full of millions of Mobots, BMO's family. BMO getting a factory reset also means that BMO is getting a return to their roots and an opportunity to meet BMO's family, or at least whatever's close enough to be considered family. This is a consistent theme of Adventure Time that starts to come up in the later seasons, that of family and the impact they have on the characters, knowingly or not. BMO began the show as nothing more than a game console that Finn and Jake sometimes played on, with no more than 1 or 2 lines per episode, but is now a recurring character purely because they have a level of proximity to Finn and Jake. When a character gets 1 to 2 lines at the start of each episode, that starts in the same place where most episodes begin, they'll eventually have some sort of personality development, and then that development has to be steered in the right direction by the writers such that it makes sense to have gone from point A-Mo to point B-Mo. So what better way to establish a robot taking after people it spends time around than to have it be its literal purpose? BMO was released into the world to learn about it, while also helping to take care of someone. so it makes sense that the BMO we see does both of these, serving as a consistent place to come back to time and time again, while also steadily mimicking the personality of those closest to them. You wouldn't expect a Season 1 BMO to have gone on half of the adventures Season 5 BMO does, but it's not jarring because we watched the change happen very slowly. Sky Witch. During a failed showcase of the Gumball Guardians' sleeping gas, Marceline enters the Candy Kingdom to ask Princess Bubblegum for help tracking down the witch, Maja. She doesn't get much time to consider this before being volunteered. They arrive at the undergrowth of a group of trees that can only be bypassed by relaxing, something PB shows Marceline how to do, and they end up in a clearing where they meet with Maja's familiar Crow Rabbit before seeing the real reason Marceline wanted Princess Bubblegum's help. Maja is the witch Ash sold Hambo to, and she wants PB's help in getting Hambo back. PB reluctantly agrees to continue with their journey, and they track the Crabbit to a pond obscuring Maja's mansion. PB analyzes various potential routes to find secret hallways and the like, while Marceline just fights the familiar in the hallways. PB snoops around an attic where she finds the receipt for Hambo among Maja's private things. But as it was a legitimately performed deal, she can't simply refuse to acknowledge the transfer. Princess Bubblegum re-enters the main hall, where Marceline has beaten the Crabbit, tossing Hambo to Marceline before flying away. In the end, it's revealed that Maja traded Hambo for something with greater sentimental value, Princess Bubblegum's rock t-shirt, and Maja says she plans to do something big with it. Maja was the witch mentioned in memory of a memory that Ash sold Hambo to due to the object having so much sentimental value. At the first mention of the stuffed animal, that sentimental value was something implied due to what it was and what the audience could assume about it. But by this point in the show, we no longer have to assume why Marceline was so attached to the doll. We saw her get it. We saw who gave it to her. We know how much has happened since then, and so what was once an implied obsession is now a confirmed one. Marceline has to get back Hambo not only because it has sentimental value to her, but because it now has sentimental value to the audience. But to trade for it, Princess Bubblegum has to give up something of equal sentimental value, giving up the shirt she got from Marceline so long ago that was even considered her most prized possession back in What Was Missing. So this raises the question of why these two objects can both be considered of equal value if PB's willing to part with one while Marcy doesn't want to stay apart from the other. And the answer lies in the above explanation, that Marceline's Hambo was given to her by Simon Petrikov, a character who no longer exists due to becoming the Ice King, whereas Princess Bubblegum's prized possession was given to her by Marceline, a character who still exists, and a character with whom she can still form new memories in the future. Frost and Fire. Ice King makes fun of Flame Princess for hugging a log, so she flies up to fight him, lighting his underwear on fire. That night, Finn has a dream where his underwear is on fire, and he hears a voice mumbling something. He tells Jake about the dream and then decides to recreate the fight between Flame Princess and Ice King by baiting him with a picnic in his kingdom. But Flame Princess loses this fight when one of Ice King's golem hits her from behind, and the next night Finn dreams that his underwear is being frozen, while the voice from before, revealed as the Cosmic Owl, starts laughing at him. Realizing it was a prophetic dream, Finn decides to create another fight between Flame Princess and Ice King by writing nasty letters about each of them. But when the two meet to fight, they end up creating a massive explosion and a cloud of steam causes Finn to pass out. He dreams about the Cosmic Owl again, who says he blew it before waking up. Realizing he went too far, Finn tries to rescue Ice King, only for Flame Princess to almost burn him with fire. Finn admits the whole thing was orchestrated by him and apologizes, but Flame Princess doesn't forgive him as she walks away, and Ice King tells Finn he blew it. The Cosmic Owl has heralded prophetic dreams before, though this time it's really more of an excuse for Finn to start recreating fight scenes than it is about actually determining what it was being predicted. Because the first time Finn tried to start a fight between his girlfriend and Ice King, it had nothing to do with the Cosmic Owl. He was just interested in seeing a big explosion or something. Finn's personality has been shown before to be one where he loves the idea of conflict and pain, where dating Flame Princess is less about FP herself and more about the inherent danger that comes with being in proximity to her. So Finn's attempts to exploit this danger for personal gain here represents the relationship as a whole. If Flame Princess really does mellow out the way that she's been doing for the last season and a half, then would Finn even want to keep dating her? Because when they first got together, she was more violent and prone to blowing stuff up, but as they've spent more and more time with one another, she's become better at controlling her violent urges. But if these violent urges are why Finn liked her so much in the first place and they're starting to change, then it's completely possible that Finn likes the idea of Flame Princess more than the girl herself if the real woman underneath all the trauma is not as wild as he imagines. Flame Princess is becoming a better person, and Finn is trying to prevent that. But in a good relationship, one ought to cheer for the self-improvement of the other person. Too old. Princess Bubblegum goes to a diplomatic dinner at the Earldom of Lemongrab with Finn, who lied to PB and Jake to get some alone time with the princess. They arrive to see that the Earldom has become more sophisticated in the last few months, though one of the Earls is now obese, while the other has several bite marks and no lower body. Finn and PB are weirded out by the constant abuse of the various members of the Earldom by the larger twin, and slip away where they hear a harp being played from a cell. This harp is played by Lemonhope, a young boy with a sweet personality, though after PB introduces herself to him, the Earls burst in and smash the harp while scolding him for playing it. Princess Bubblegum wants to rescue Lemonhope, and Finn comes up with a plan to prank the Earl like they did in the good old days. This prank only gets the three thrown in the dungeon, but Lemonhope plays Finn's flute badly, attracting the Lemongrabs to the cell, where the smaller one frees the prisoners. They try to escape, but the doors are sealed shut, and the Lemon people are electrocuted into fighting Finn. But the smaller Lemongrab, partially eaten for freeing them, comes out of his twin's mouth to encourage Lemonhope to be a better person, before freeing everyone as PB and Finn escape to give Lemonhope a better life in the Candy Kingdom. This episode is a callback to Too Young, when Finn and a younger Princess Bubblegum attempted to win a prank war against Lemongrab in order to win back the kingdom they lost. But the parallels diverge in this episode when their motives are less pure. PB was originally trying to win back her kingdom in a childish way because she was a child, but it was also considered the right thing to do because they were the ones who lost their land. Here, PB and Finn are the guests of the Earldom of Lemongrab, and while it's true that their motives in trying to rescue Lemonhope are pure, they're still the ones trying to change someone else's legacy, and thus there's a greater need for justification to doing so. And sure, Princess Bubblegum may have been up to justify kidnapping Lemonhope, as it was clear that something was going wrong with the Earldom surrounding him that would have stifled his creativity and greatness. But these are only the justifications of PB. Finn doesn't care so much about Lemonhope as he does about trying to make Flame Princess jealous by playing around with another girl and trying to recreate old times. So the callback of this episode is not just something that exists outside of the universe, but in-universe as well, as Finn desperately wants to go back to how things used to be, before he blew it. Earth and Water. Finn is bummed out about his breakup with Flame Princess, so he, Jake, and Ice King, still homeless from Frost and Fire, go out for a girls' night, boys style. Meanwhile, Princess Bubblegum is monitoring Flame Princess to try to learn more about her emotions so she can nullify them to prevent a future disaster like we saw in Burning Low. Though after she prepares a series of tests to find this data, she gets a call from Jake as Gunter's attempts to rebuild the Ice Kingdom have made evil Snowa constrictors. When she leaves to save the day, Cinnamon Bun, now in charge of testing, frees Flame Princess, and the two start talking while bonding over how much they dislike lying in secrets. Cinnamon Bun reveals to Flame Princess that the reason she was locked up as a child was because Princess Bubblegum caught her as a baby burning down a forest, and demanded that the Flame King figure out something to stop that from happening again. Princess Bubblegum learns that Flame Princess was freed by Cinnamon Bun, and she tracks the duo to the Flame Kingdom, where the guards refuse to let them inside the castle until they notice a few citizens being honest about their intentions. After saying honestly why they want to enter, they're allowed by, learning that honesty is the new law of the land in the Flame Kingdom now that Flame Princess has usurped the throne and imprisoned her father. She tells Finn that they're no longer dating but can still be friends if he agrees to be completely honest in the future. Frost and Fire, Too Old, and Earth and Water form a sort of mini trilogy of episodes revolving around Finn and Flame Princess's relationship ending. This was a relationship that began shortly after Flame Princess first left a lantern in the Fire Kingdom for the first time, having spent her whole life locked away for the safety of the Flame King, as well as the world at large. There's a bit of a misunderstanding behind why all of this occurred, that Princess Bubblegum said she would take care of it herself if Flame King did not, but here we see that this meant doing science on her to allow her to control herself better. It was the Flame King who had the idea to keep the princess locked away when his other plan to release her into the wild to die of exposure didn't work. This plan itself was something done out of self-preservation. The story of the Flame Kingdom has borrowed from classics like Shakespeare in the past, so it's not a stretch to go back a bit further in the Western canon to Oedipus Rex. So Flame Princess began her life locked away due to a misunderstanding. She then began dating Finn while having little experience with the way the world worked outside of the limited interactions she had had with her father, who was unlikely to admit he locked up his daughter out of fear of being dethroned because it would make him look weak. So she ends up learning of this and developing a strong sense of honesty that she starts to enforce, and because both of the original reasons she was locked up have come to pass, lacking the emotional instability of dealing with liars and the overthrow of the Flame King, there's no longer any reason to stick to her old life, whether that's through the ideals or the people involved. Time Sandwich. Finn and BMO are playing blindfolded finger spread when Jake comes in with sandwich ingredients, getting into the zone so he can make the perfect sandwich. Combining Prismo's pickles, his own tears, the soul of a lobster, and a few other valuable items, he makes the best sandwich ever. And then Magic Man appears and steals it. Jake tries to fight him for it, but gets overpowered, so Magic Man leaves him with a riddle before jumping out the side of the house, then slowing down time to savor the moment. Finn and Jake try to get the sandwich back, but are slowed too much when they try to get near him, asking others for assistance to retrieve it. BMO offers to retrieve the sandwich, but instead makes them set up a cool skateboard video. Princess Bubblegum fires an anti-molasses missile that only makes BMO's skateboard trick look cooler. Marceline shows up to do a demon elbow drop, but only gets frozen as well. Jake gives up on getting his sandwich back or making a new one, and he starts to mourn the old sandwich, only to accidentally walk into the time sphere without slowing down. He realizes that his sadness stops him from being affected and imagines his own funeral to get closer, punching out Magic Man and destroying the time bubble. Marceline elbow drops Magic Man and BMO hits him with their skateboard before Jake finally gets to take a bite of his perfect sandwich. Magic Man gives Jake the riddle: when your face shows 720, when green leaves turn brown, the only way forward is down. Then you'll see, the wetter the better, which, while being wordplay at best, still winds up being mostly true by the end of the episode. The connection between 720 looking like a sad face was a bit tenuous, but green leaves turning brown could refer to his failed second attempt at a sandwich, while the only way forward, being down, refers to his imaginary funeral as his body is lowered to the ground. The wetter the better is mentioned in the episode as his tears letting him move forward faster, so Magic Man's riddle really did come true. Or maybe these were all pretty arbitrary connections, with one or two coming true and the rest being stretches of the imagination. In the same sense as that, BMO claims that Jake will get his sandwich back before their skateboard hits the ground, which also technically comes true as BMO is trapped above Magic Man. Though this would also imply that Marceline's elbow drop should have done more than just brutalizing him after he was already knocked out by Jake's fist, even if it was satisfying to see happen. The Vault. Finn keeps sleepwalking and smashing up the house due to something in his vault, so Jake gives him a game called Regression Simulator that will hypnotize him to see his past lives. Here, he sees himself as a blue comet, a butterfly, and some goo, before seeing a woman named Shoko riding a tiger to the mansion from The Creeps, where she meets with the Bat Boy gang who tell her to steal an amulet from a neighboring gang. This neighboring gang is the Candy Kingdom, still under construction, and Shoko infiltrates it by pretending she was attacked to be let inside. Princess Bubblegum helps Shoko out, sounding horrified at her backstory, like how her parents sold her arm for a computer before offering her a job. Shoko works well at this new job until she's taken underneath the Candy Kingdom, where Princess Bubblegum was working on the Gumball Guardians, and she has Shoko help in building them before activating the new Guardians with the amulet Shoko was sent to steal. As a reward for assisting, Shoko's given a mechanical arm by PB, which causes her to second-guess her loyalty. But that night, Shoko steals the amulet anyway, running away with it before being chased by the Gumball Guardians into a radioactive river. PB calls off the chase, but Shoko survived, crawling her mutated body to a tree on a hill where she presses her reset button. This tree becomes the Tree Fort, where the flashback ends. Finn calls PB over for Reckoning, where he smashes up the floor a bit before seeing Shoko under there, taking the amulet from her and returning it to Princess Bubblegum. Finn's vault was at first just a thing he did to avoid his emotions, but now the emotions are coming out, not only due to things like nightmares and sleepwalking, but because the show itself has taken on a more mature tone over the last several years. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, Adventure Time is a show that matured with its audience, and the vault, the concept, not the episode, is the sort of thing that facilitates that idea. Finn being in a cycle of reincarnation and having lived a past life as a mercenary stealing for gains before dying in pain is a kind of story that wouldn't have fit into Season 3, but now we're in the second half of Season 5, so the audience is old enough to start dealing with more complex plots that incorporate a bit of darkness over the less ambiguous good and evil that the early seasons contained in more straightforward plots. Finn seals concepts in the vault, not only because he's not ready to deal with them, but because the audience isn't either. A few major reveals are made during this episode. For one, that Princess Bubblegum is far older than she told everyone she was, and that Finn is far older than he has also been telling everyone he was, having reincarnated several times over his life, something Shoko even alludes to when she collapses on the ground at the site of the tree fort. And while the episode focuses on Shoko, we're already primed to believe that the other flashbacks are important too, when realizing that the butterfly he once was lines up with his spirit animals from Still when he had to astral project to defeat the Ice King. Love games. Finn is podcasting with Jake about how he's moved on from dating princesses to saving them, and then Slime Princess enters asking Finn to marry her. She needs to be wed as her sister Blargatha has found a love lately with the evil Guillermo, and they plan on ruling as tyrants. So Finn agrees to an in-name-only wedding, only for Blargatha to refuse to acknowledge this, challenging them to the Slime Kingdom tradition of the Trials of Glarb, games to see which couple is the most in love, refereed by Elder Plops. The first trial is crooning, something Finn is able to succeed in by channeling his feelings for Flame Princess into song. The second is spooning, something Finn refuses to do with Slime Princess, giving the point to Blargatha and Guillermo. The final challenge is kissing, but when Finn throws up before a rehearsal kiss, he decides to simply beat up Guillermo to get him to leave. He enters Blargatha's chambers, where he sees rows and rows of tanks prepped for a takeover. But Finn jumps in after the couple and punches out Guillermo, revealed to be a blob with olives for eyes. This disqualifies Blargatha from competing, and Slime Princess remains in charge, but she throws up before her celebratory kiss with Finn. You know Finn's feelings are in the dumps because he started a podcast about how much he doesn't care about not dating anymore. He then tries to test this theory by pretending to be in a relationship with Slime Princess, if only to prove he can fake a relationship and not feel anything by it, and then he fails. When you're trying to avoid something completely to claim you're done with it, you haven't actually proven that you're over it at all. Finn says he's cool with not being in a relationship anymore, yet he has to actively avoid romantic feelings of any kind. Were he really done, he'd be able to fake a relationship with Slime Princess, and he'd still be completely emotionally detached from the situation. But it's probably for the best that he wasn't. Constantly being reminded of romantic things like swan boats and so on caused Finn to succeed in the first challenge by channeling that heartbreak into song. And while the trials of Glarb never reached their conclusion, the fact that he still has the ability to make something positive from the whole experience means he's able to at least remember the good moments instead of shutting off positive feelings in the vault or something. Dungeon Train. Finn is spaced out and mumbling to himself while searching for a dungeon when he and Jake come across a train going in a spiral. They attempt to pass through this train, but a man charges them that Finn beats up, obtaining train loot from the encounter. So Finn and Jake decide to go deeper into this train, fighting through random encounters and getting more and more powerful before fighting a boss monster who's decked out in even more loot. Jake is at first excited to see that Finn has stopped moping around, but after going through the dungeon for a while longer, he becomes tired and bored. But Finn keeps encouraging him to go on. Jake attempts to leave Finn alone, citing a future crystal that shows Finn in the train dungeon as an old man. But Finn ignores him to do just a few more cars. Jake returns after some time away, only to find out that Finn has become one of the powerful boss encounters with all his new loot, warning Finn that he needs to leave or he might not be able to. Finn looks into the future crystal again and sees Jake as an old man, still following him around, and he realizes he can't actually stay forever. So he makes up his mind to leave for sure this time, and the future crystal shows the two back at the tree fort. The last time Finn went on a therapy dungeon dive, he took Flame Princess along with him. That was an episode all about the value of escapism, to do something positive for your mental health so you aren't making life decisions in a bad mood. This episode follows up on that idea. Finn encounters the dungeon train and starts swinging his sword around like old times, fighting bad guys and collecting adventurers' loot. After a little bit of this, he's back to his old self, smiling and laughing again while he makes puns about the enemies he's fighting with the same energy he had before the breakup. But while getting back into the swing of things is nice, what is not so nice is staying in the swing of things. Finn wants to stay on the dungeon train forever, telling himself he's just gonna fight through one or more boss monsters or just a few more cars because he's unable to cope with what he has to return to afterwards. Escapism is fine as long as you understand it's supposed to be temporary. It is meant to help you deal with your problems, but not replace them outright. At a certain point, it will be time to face the real world again, something Finn's only able to understand when he sees something else that's supportive of his instincts to a fault, Jake. Jake is prepared to follow Finn until they're old and gray, even though he has nothing to run from. Well, technically he does. When Jake takes a step outside the train to watch the stars, he thinks about where his kids are, and if they're doing okay, thinking about the real world instead of the fantasy one he just left. Box Prince. After a storm, Finn sees a box with a face on it blowing by and heads out to investigate, where he learns it's a cat inside of a box, meowing as Finn wonders if it's lost and needs to be taken home. Finn asks Jake if he wants to help, but Jake doesn't like cats, so he stays in the tree fort playing video games before he gets a nacho stuck in his teeth. Jake refuses to stretch to get the nacho piece out, saying that's taking the easy way out. So he tries several things to remove it before giving up and allowing it to be a minor inconvenience to remind him of that lesson. Meanwhile, Finn has arrived at the Box Kingdom, made of cardboard boxes and populated by cats, where he learns the box prince he's been following has been usurped. They retrieve the missing cardboard crown and reveal the prince to the people, though they seem uninterested until the usurper prince challenges the box prince to a joust. This joust turns violent as the watching cats all start fighting each other, only broken up when Finn gets out an emergency spray bottle and calls them bad cats. But in the commotion, the boxes were knocked off of the cats, and Finn realizes both princes were identical underneath. He tries identifying one that licked him before, but when they both do this, as do all the other cats, Finn starts to question whether the entire box story wasn't just a bunch of cats playing with boxes, and he read too far into the thing. Finn goes on an epic journey to save the Box Kingdom by placing its rightful owner back on the throne and preventing its usurper from stealing from its people. Or maybe Finn spends the entire episode playing with a bunch of cats and reading way into every tiny action they perform. These cats never do much more than meow and play in boxes and eat some fish, yet Finn still assumes there has to be some sort of adventurous narrative hidden behind the actions that are otherwise totally normal to do. So instead of just playing with a bunch of cats the whole time, Finn played with cats the whole time. The episode opened with Finn waiting out a storm while super anxious, so perhaps pretending he was on an adventure is how Finn plays from the outset, and he only really grew upset once he realized the cats weren't playing along convincingly enough. Jake, meanwhile, has a similar B-plot in the sense that he refuses to simply stretch his way out of his problems, despite BMO recalling that he stretched his way out of problems plenty of times before. It's an instance of Jake being too lazy to be lazy, and trying to justify why he doesn't simply fix his short-term problems right away, trying to assign some meaning to meaningless actions and decisions. Red starved. Jake is in the Sand City, complaining of a stomach ache from the candy and Finn's pack he ate, while Marceline is retrieving the spoon of prosperity for Princess Bubblegum. But when Jake falls into some quicksand and violently drills himself out, the city begins to collapse, and their escape route is blocked. Marceline realizes the candies Jake ate were actually the red objects she kept as food, and she begins to go mad with hunger. So Finn leaves to find something red for her, while Jake stays behind with Marceline, tying her to a beam to stop her from eating his insides. Finn heads through the remains of the Sand City, where he finds a beam of red light that turns things into sand, following the trail of light past a dead priest, where he sees a turtle creature that creates it. Finn talks to this creature, and explains that the priest over there died a while ago, and the demon sulks off, letting Finn have the gem he was shining his light through. Finn drags this massive gem up to where Jake and Marcy were before, only to see that Jake has surrounded Marceline with lava as they both want to eat each other. But Jake points out the gem Finn brought up is actually an emerald, and Finn is red-green colorblind. They also learn that the rabid Marceline has escaped, though Princess Bubblegum winds up rescuing them in a piloted sandworm after detecting seismic activity. Marceline drains the pink from PB, though she uses the spoon of prosperity to regenerate afterwards, and they return to the surface. Once again, Princess Bubblegum is working on something to give herself immortality, this time sending the rest of her friends underground for a forbidden object. Although the danger they face has far less to do with the sand-cursed city than it does with themselves. Finn's journeys through this city result in a massive number of casualties sealed away to guard against an evil priest and his demonic minion. But Finn just explains that that's sort of a lame idea, and the minion leaves of his own volition to be made fun of by his peers. The actual threat comes from Jake eating all of Marceline's food, leaving them both with nothing to eat but each other, as Finn, unaware until now he's colorblind, is the one set out to find something red for Marcy to eat before she kills Jake. Jake is also supposed to be the one staying behind with Marceline as she is transforming into a monstrous form, and yet Jake is the one who's afraid of vampires, as seen back in the first season. And Marceline, who eats colors, is sent into an underground cavern where the low light conditions mean colors never really shine through. In an otherwise straightforward task, each person was given the job they would struggle with the most, and so everything ended up disastrous until Princess Bubblegum was able to save the day easily. We fixed a truck. While on a walk, Finn finds a broken down truck that he names Hot Daniel, and he asks Jake and BMO if they want to fix it. As neither of them knows much about mechanics, they ask Banana Man to help them fix it. Banana Man's able to explain the basic mechanics of what they need to do, a conversation that mostly goes over Finn and Jake's head, but over the next day, they work together to fix it up. BMO spends the night working further, listening to Starchy's late-night talk show, with Banana Man joining in later because he can't sleep, and the next day they finally manage to fix Hot Daniel. Banana Man is given the keys to take it for a test drive where he sees a beautiful banana guard, and Jake encourages her to talk to him later. They drive through the streets of the Candy Kingdom where they see an angry mob chasing PB, believing her to be a shape-shifting lizard, as per Starchy's talk show. But when they rescue the princess, they find out she really was a lizard, who grows giant and begins to destroy the Candy Kingdom. So Finn throws Banana Man's peel in front of the truck, and they begin flying through the air, crashing into the lizard and destroying it. The real Princess Bubblegum comes out of the sewers as the banana guardswoman comes back for Banana Man to arrest him for indecent exposure. Finn and Jake fix up the truck for fun, but Weird Al fixes it up for friendship, his motivations being less about the truck itself than who it is he's building this truck for. He thinks that if he can impress the others with his mechanical knowledge, then they'll like him more and want to hang out. And unlike what one would have expected from a series that would push a moral, Banana Man's plan works. Jake helps him out by flirting with the guardswoman, Finn allows Banana Man to help save the day, and BMO gets him involved in some conspiracy theory stuff. In the end, Banana Man's arrested for indecent exposure, though this is a minor charge and far less concerning than what he wanted and then got. Some bro times. Playdate. Finn and Jake are tired of Ice King living in their house, so they try to convince him to leave and check into a hotel, though Ice King refuses, saying he'd just be lonely. So to give them some peace and quiet, they invite Abracadaniel as a playmate for the Ice King. When Ice King destroys one of Abracadaniel's flower spells, the other wizard starts to fawn over how cool Ice King is, and soon they're the best of friends. After getting invited to Abracadaniel's interpretive dance show, Finn and Jake decide to leave the two alone, and the wizards pretend to be too afraid of the dark to leave. They stay up all night as Ice King shows off Finn and Jake's treasure collection to his new friend, eventually bringing the tour over to the demon sword. Ice King reads off the demon language on the hilt, and Keoth is summoned, quickly overpowering the two wizards. Finn and Jake come down to banish the demon, but he threatens Ice King and Abracadaniel's lives unless they destroy the sword and give him his blood back. Finn breaks the sword, and Keoth becomes more powerful, kidnapping Jake, who he believes is Joshua, as Ice King and Abracadaniel return to the Ice Kingdom, because it's been rebuilt for weeks. The Pit. Jake is taken to the broke-up dimension where Keoth was originally from, tossed into a pit in the demon's yoga room where his blood is drained, preventing Jake from using his powers. Finn wants to rescue Jake but doesn't know how, inviting Lady Rainicorn over for help in researching Joshua's old videotapes. Most of his videotapes on Keoth were taped over by Jake making sexy videos, or BMO and Shelby recording a sequel to Heat Signature. But Finn is still able to piece together enough information on how the sword was made and where the portal to his dimension was found to track down Joshua's old cave systems. Meanwhile, Jake is refusing to fight Keoth, staying in his pit to talk to Little Buddy until he's destroyed by the booby-trapped essentials. Keoth tosses a dog woman named Samantha into the pit, telling them to destroy each other, though Jake also refuses to fight her because he's confident Finn will arrive soon. Finn and Lady do arrive soon, after they track down the original tablets Joshua used to enter the broke-up dimension. Finn pulls out a new demon sword to fight Keoth, but Keoth simply consumes the blood from this sword, only for Finn to reveal it was not blood, but frozen grape juice blessed by Shelby in their movie's priest costume. Keoth explodes and Jake gets his blood back, breaking the dimension's glass to return home. Samantha says she's no longer interested in destroying Jake, and they all come in for a group hug. Finn's blood sword is destroyed, and the demon he inherited from his father returns to the mortal realm seeking vengeance against the man who imprisoned him. But that man is dead, and he gets Jake instead, who doesn't give Keoth the fight he had been waiting years for. He tries to get Jake to fight someone, but he continues to refuse. Finally, Finn shows up with a new sword, ready to fight, and Keoth is slain by this sword because he was too eager to fight to consider if the second copy of the original sword could have been trapped in some way. The first time Finn and Jake tried to banish Keoth, they were stopped from doing so because he threatened the lives of Abracadaniel and Ice King, two people who have been antagonistic in the past, but that aren't especially evil guys, just thoroughly misguided. Abracadaniel's first appearance had Finn and Jake give him a confidence boost, only for this confidence boost to turn him into a jerk that Finn defeated with the Power Screech. This time around, there's no one for him to be cooler than just Ice King. The two guys both equally lame, to the point of sort of canceling one another out. This is why a demon actually threatening one of the villains' gallery of Adventure Time works as a strategy, because they're not really villains any longer. It is interesting to see just how nonchalant Jake was during his entire imprisonment in the pit, never really coming up with an escape plan as he was confident that Finn would save him. And he was right too. It mirrors the season opener when Finn was transported into an alternate reality with his only remaining friend transforming into a monster because he was being corrupted by the crown, and then Jake pulled him out of that hopeless situation. Jake gets put into an alternate dimension and stripped of his powers, but the duo's beaten greater odds before, so there's not a reason to worry. Jake's greater concern than being trapped by a demon out for vengeance he can never get is the fact that this woman he was supposed to be fighting looks like she's hugging him instead, and he's wondering how to explain that to his girlfriend. James. The episode opens on a funeral service with Finn and Jake barely able to hold it together as they put on happy faces for a ceremony held by Princess Bubblegum. It then flashes back to Finn, Jake, Princess Bubblegum, and a candy citizen named James as they explore a pit in the Desert of Wonder. Jake is unsure why James was brought along, as he doesn't seem to be taking the mission very seriously, cracking jokes and doing impressions the whole time. But while grabbing a sample from the ground, some oozers come out of the floor and begin chasing the group, smashing their vehicle and preventing their escape. James offers to use his lucky coin to fix the radio, claiming to have fixed it, only for the machine to be all smashed up. They have no emergency flares, and their attempts to distract the swarm of oozers don't work after someone shoots the missing flare anyway to bring their attention back. So Finn volunteers to serve as bait for the mob, only for PB to knock him unconscious. As Finn and Jake are being dragged away, they see James being chased by the mob before they overtake him. Finn wakes up on the surface, once they're back to safety, where he asks Princess Bubblegum what happened, and she explains she was the one to sabotage their escape attempts as she calculated they would not work. The episode then cuts back to the present, where Princess Bubblegum's ceremony unveils a new James, synthesized from a chunk of the original. A red shirt is a character in a fictional story who appears alongside the main cast for a short amount of time, only to be killed off unceremoniously, to the surprise of no one. Of course, the one guy the audience doesn't recognize is going to be the one who's killed off, if anyone, because he would impact the overall story the least were he not present. So when Finn says he'll be the one to distract the oozers so the others can get away, we know it's just a bluff. Not by Finn, but the writers, because of course the new guy we just met is going to be the one not returning from this trip. He probably wasn't going to be in the next episode anyway. It would have felt like a betrayal of what James's sacrifice meant when Princess Bubblegum brought him back to life from a small chunk of the original, but this would have only been the case if we as an audience were not already primed to think very little of his life in the first place. It's only a betrayal if something of value was lost. The real setup for what this episode means is the fact that James survived the events of the episode, just in the form of one of the slime monsters we saw, who happened to be the same slime monsters we saw Simon Petrikov and Marceline fighting against before. James will be more memorable to the audience not because of who he was, but of what he became. Root Beer Guy. Root Beer Guy watches Finn and Jake rescuing a bunch of candy people from the ogre before returning to his boring life as a telemarketer. Here he's yelled at by his boss before returning home to his wife, who he ignores to focus on his amateur detective novels. But while letting the cat out, he hears Princess Bubblegum scream, though when he tries to tell his wife about this, she doesn't believe him. He tries to confront Finn and Jake about this, but they intimidate him into silence, so he turns to the banana guards, though they don't believe him after Jake does a PB impression. Root Beer Guy goes through the CCTV tapes of the previous night to find evidence of Princess Bubblegum's kidnapping, and soon finds the tape, which he attempts to show to his wife, though she only calls Finn and Jake over because she thinks he's obsessed. He continues the pursuit, looking at their purchase history and tracking them to a lake where they're about to dump the body. Unable to stop them, Root Beer Guy calls the banana guards and claims he's the kidnapper, and also that he's taking a boat out past 8 p.m. The guards rush out to arrest him, Finn, and Jake before Princess Bubblegum comes out of the Butterscotch Lake to congratulate the guards on their detective work in a test of their abilities, only to learn it was Root Beer Guy who saved the day. Later on, Root Beer Guy has been elevated to captain of the guard, and he rekindles his relationship with his wife as he throws out his typewriter. Root Beer Guy had the wrong kind of life. He worked a dead-end job and dreamed of greater things, living his life through a series of fantasies about detective work, in spite of the many good things still in front of him. His job was boring, but he still had a home of his own. His wife loved him even if she didn't play along with what she assumed were flights of fancy. And while Root Beer Guy himself might have believed that he was destined to write novels, he really just wanted the excitement, not recognition. This is why he was willing to turn himself in order to save the princess from Finn and Jake, It wasn't about the glory, but about living for something. But that's not the really interesting part about this episode. Because each citizen of the Candy Kingdom was made by Princess Bubblegum for a specific purpose. The Banana Guards are made to guard. Starchy was made to tend the graveyard, so the fact that someone could be tailor-made to the wrong role means it's possible anyone might be in the wrong role. The Candy Kingdom is far less of a political entity and far more of an extended laboratory for its ruler, Princess Bubblegum, and the show will lean more into the actual structure and flaws of that structure later on. Apple Wedding. Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig are finally getting married, with their family and friends all in attendance. Princess Bubblegum assigns Finn to keep LSP away from the wedding, while Bimo is stuck talking to Tree Trunks' ex-husband Wyatt. But when it's time for the ceremony, Princess Bubblegum learns that TT has decided she doesn't recognize her authority, as she wants the King of Ooh to officiate the wedding instead. Finn fails to keep the wedding dress-clad LSP from crashing the wedding, and Jake gets swarmed by the kiddos. Princess Bubblegum is furious that the fraudster is in attendance, and so she enters the king's blimp to look for evidence, eventually crashing into the wedding itself before vows can be exchanged, to show that his officiant license is expired. Though when he shows off his renewed forms, Princess Bubblegum simply throws him, and the entire wedding party, into her dungeon. While imprisoned, Tree Trunks sees her mother making out with her ex-husband and begins to dig her own grave. But Mr. Pig reminds her that their family and friends are all still in attendance. But the King of Ooh flees out the window, saying they can officiate their own wedding, which gives Tree Trunks the idea to do just that. She exchanges vows with Mr. Pig, and Princess Bubblegum, watching the whole thing from the surveillance room, is so moved by the act that she frees all of the prisoners. All of the prisoners. Tree Trunks began the show as a gag on what happens when somebody misses your TTRPG group's Session 0 and makes a character wildly dissimilar to the rest of the table. Yet somehow, through perhaps sheer stubbornness, Tree Trunks now fits in more properly to the Adventure Time setting than many other characters. Adventure Time used to be a different show, the episodic adventures being largely disconnected from one another. But now the plot has picked up and everybody it makes sense to bring back gets to stay. So Tree Trunks, originally a wildly inappropriate adult character in a childlike adventure setting, perhaps has not changed to better fit the show, but rather, the show's labeling has expanded to better suit her, as well as anyone else who didn't previously fit under that umbrella. It's not like anything has changed, but the scale, as Adventure Time can now include a sassy talking elephant with multiple ex-husbands, because it can fit just about anyone without question. Blade of Grass. Finn and Jake are fighting on slides, though Jake is doing most of the work because Finn is still wielding the broken demon blood sword from the pit. So they go to the market to buy a new one, turning down Choose Goose after remembering the armor of Zeldron he sold them, and going to a grass shack where a grass wizard sells them a grass sword. Finn takes this sword home, chopping through several things including an apple at Tree Trunks', which makes her claim that the sword is cursed. That night, Finn has a nightmare that the sword fuses with him, turning him into grass before he blows away. The next morning, Finn notices the sword sticking to him, so he throws it into a river before returning home, where the sword is waiting for him. Finn and Jake try to return the sword the next day, but the grass shack is missing, and Choose Goose chides them for not trusting him. The merchant tells them where the grass wizard lives so they can confront him themselves, though as the duo approaches the house, the wizard begins summoning grass creatures to fight them. Finn cuts them down with ease before making it to the top of the hill, though when the wizard refuses to undo the curse, Finn realizes he has more control over the sword now and begins to accept it. Finn at first refused to get rid of his old heirloom sword despite it being broken due to the emotional attachments he had. But when he gets his new sword, he is at first attracted to the sense of power he gets from it, as it has the ability to cut really, really well, in ways he had never used a sword before. The novelty of this new sword is nice for a while, but then it starts to fuse with his arm, meaning he can never get rid of the sword. This is where the problems start as he tries to run away from the sword, only to constantly see this weapon appearing again and again. In his attempt to return it, Finn and Jake see a candle store being robbed, and, unable to fight without the grass sword, Finn unsheathes it and saves the day, getting to be the hero. This is when the sword finishes fusing with his arm, meaning he can never put it away, but it's also the start of when he begins to accept the sword not for its creepy demeanor, but for what it represents. The sword is a tool used by a hero. Finn considers himself a hero. So whether he wants to or not, Finn is going to have to be armed in some way. Very funny wording, this will be important later. The fact that his sword is bound to his arm barely changes anything as long as he looks at it pragmatically. The only thing that has changed so far about his sword arm is the fact that it's a bit easier to carry around now. Rattleballs. Finn realizes he's been slacking on his duties to defend Princess Bubblegum, so he starts hanging around her all the time to the point of annoyance. PB orders him to take a break, which Finn does by going to a junkyard and practicing with his new grass sword. But while he's here, he is saved from a falling car by a robot named Rattleballs, who insults Finn's swordsmanship before returning to meditation. But Finn hears him coughing due to a gumball lodged in his body and offers to use his sword to remove it, and Rattleballs agrees to train Finn with the sword. This process mostly consists of Finn getting eggs thrown at him while burning himself. But because he passes this training, Rattleballs agrees to teach Finn his secret technique and his backstory. He was part of an elite guard made by Princess Bubblegum in the early days of the Candy Kingdom to replace the comically inept Banana Guards. But these Gumball Guards were too violent, fighting each other when there was no one else to fight. So Princess Bubblegum ordered all of the guards to be smashed into cubes, though Rattleballs resisted his programming to escape, where he spent the next 100 years in hiding. Finn, having sworn allegiance to Princess Bubblegum, immediately tells her about this, and she takes the Banana Guard to the junkyard to subdue him. Rattleballs fights off all the guards non-lethally, but offers his sword to PB because he still feels loyal to her. Princess Bubblegum unloads a new cube to the rest of the Banana Guard, claiming she's destroyed Rattleballs. But in secret, she knights him before allowing the robot to defend the Candy Kingdom in the shadows. At first, Rattleballs feels like another mistake of Princess Bubblegum in the vein of Lemon Grab, one of her experiments that went too far in the interest of safety or security that she wishes to undo. But considering that Rattleballs is over 100 years old and was a member of the Candy Kingdom from back when it was still under construction, the same state we saw it in during the Vault, gives an idea of why Princess Bubblegum would have built a robot army for defense. The world back then used to be a lot more dangerous, so there was a need for tougher security guards. But once things stabilized, Princess Bubblegum had to get rid of the guards as they were so stir-crazy they began attacking everything and anything. In the current season, the Candy Kingdom is defended by the Banana Guards, the comically inept guys who the Gumball Guards were meant to replace. Princess Bubblegum could bring back the comic relief after the tension let up a bit. But then this calls attention to the fact that she recommissioned Rattleballs to protect the Candy Kingdom in secret. She doesn't want to worry the other citizens and Banana Guard by making it look as though something dangerous is on the way, though she still recognizes that something big is coming up. The Red Throne. The Flame King's minion, Don John, enters the Flame Princess's throne room to take over, hypnotizing all the guards and ordering them to free the Flame King, who's tired of Flame Princess ruling too kindly. Cinnamon Bun grabs FP and they ride away on his flying firewolf, Jake II, trying to come up with a person who can help them take back the kingdom. They turn to Finn, who thinks this means he's getting back together with his ex, though Cinnamon Bun tries to keep Finn's mind in the game. Finn ends up charging the throne room, only to be told not to hurt the guards as they're being manipulated, and, without the ability to fight, Flame Princess and Finn are captured. But Cinnamon Bun is not, having duked out the guards to grab a key. Also duking it out are Don John and Flame King, as they argue over the fact that Flame Princess refuses to marry the king's minion. This serves as a distraction for Cinnamon Bun to free Finn and Flame Princess, though when he re-enters the main hall, the half-baked pastry is blasted by fire. Now fully baked, Cinnamon Bun is able to give a rousing speech to the Flame People, whose hypnosis is weakened by Flame King's fight, and he encourages them to overthrow the duo, who are then imprisoned. Afterwards, he announces his lifelong dedication and love to Flame Princess, as Finn realizes he was just shown up by Cinnamon Bun. Finn used to date the Flame Princess because he was in love with her violent, destructive tendencies, which lined up with his love of danger and adventure. But as Flame Princess matured, Finn did not, and she has since left him behind emotionally. So while Flame Princess is pragmatic in her reunion with Finn, Finn is more emotionally driven, trying to reignite, pun intended, his relationship with her by acting the way he always has, barging in and slaying the bad guys. But having obtained the relevant experience needed to rule, Flame Princess knows that violence won't solve issues like manipulation, so she requires a more elegant touch than Finn's capable of doing. This means that, as Finn was trying to get back together with Flame Princess, he was also learning why that wasn't possible. The two of them have drifted too far apart. Who is capable of being the man Flame Princess needs, however, is Cinnamon Bun. His half-baked simple-mindedness makes him an ideal knight because, unlike Finn, he's not after Flame Princess romantically, but because they have similar ideals. CB was too simple to be mean or manipulative, and Flame Princess hates those who lie and manipulate. It's especially fitting that this conflict was against Don John, who literally had the powers to manipulate people. Finn was not trying to save the day, he was trying to win over a princess who basically no longer existed. Betty. The secret wizards from before are attempting to summon Bella Noche, as Ice King watches in secret. Their attempt succeeds in spite of the Grand Master Wizard trying to stop the ceremony, and Bella Noche is summoned, being an anti-magical being who cancels the magic powers of everyone who comes near. With the Ice King's crown now powerless, Simon returns to his normal form, and he punches out Ash to steal his magic carpet, returning home to his research where he remembers Marceline and calls her over. She arrives with Hambo in hand, the sentimental value of the object being the key to open a portal to the past. Simon uses this portal to talk to Betty, his princess from 1,000 years ago, and forgives her for abandoning him when his ice powers took over. But instead of letting Simon go, Betty jumps through the portal to the present, where she learns that Simon is dying as the crown's magic was the thing keeping him alive all this time. She takes Simon to Wizard City, where Bella Noche's influence is growing, the duo pursued by Death, who bargains with Simon between death and remaining as Ice King. But Betty refuses to let him go, jumping into the city and punching out the anti-magic being, where she collapses and all the magic is saved. Ice King returns to his old, new-ish, crazy self, telling the kidnapped Muscle Princess about how he met the love of his life while passed out, as Betty, in disguise, flies away. Betty originally began as what is often referred to as a fridge character, pun not intended. This is when a female character is introduced specifically to leave a male character, often by dying, so that they can have some implied tragic backstory the audience themselves won't really appreciate due to never getting a sense of what this woman's life was like, or what the man was like before becoming bitter from losing her. This episode revisits the idea of Betty to make her more fleshed out and effectively to unkill the character so she can become less of a plot device to make the audience feel like they're supposed to feel bad, so that the tragedy itself can become more overt rather than implied. I don't think it was intentional to make Betty into a non-character in her first appearance, but it was an Ice King-centric episode, so that was one of those inevitabilities of focusing on one thing for the episode only. There's only 11 minutes per episode, so some things just don't get the same consideration as others. Also not getting a lot of consideration is Betty herself, who was just transported 1,000 years into the future into a post-Mushroom War world, and immediately sets out to punch the center of an anti-magic field rather than taking some time to adapt to the insanity. Though later on this becomes less of a rushed plotline and more of a subtle character moment, where we see the extreme lengths Betty is willing to go to for those that she loves. Punching out Bella Noche, a decidedly non-magical method of defeating her, is the least of what she'll do. Bad timing. Princess Bubblegum is showing off her newly invented time travel sphere, able to send anything recorded by the sphere back in time. Lumpy Space Princess overhears this showcase and bursts in, demanding that PB take her back in time to when her ex-boyfriend Brad still loved her. PB insists that time travel doesn't work that way, so LSP gets furious and runs off to a candy bar where she meets up with Johnny, an old friend from her school days. He's in town to present a business deal to Princess Bubblegum, though he's nervous about this. LSP gives him a bit of advice on how to be more confident, and the two hit it off, with LSP eventually invited to spend the night at his place. The next day, Johnny has his meeting, and it's a success due to the good vibes Lumpy Space Princess sent his way. But when she learns that Johnny was invited back to a dinner to arrange the details of this business deal, and that the dinner is just Princess Bubblegum and him, she grows resentful and decides to crash this dinner by throwing lit bottles inside and crashing a truck through the front door. LSP then enters the burning room with Princess Bubblegum's time travel orb to send Johnny back to when they first reunited at the bar. But when LSP arrives there, she doesn't find Johnny, as he was never recorded by the time travel orb. Lumpy Space Princess leaves the bar depressed as Johnny appears outside the frame among all the demons. During this episode, Lumpy Space Princess shows her usual brand of desperation, the sort of thing that got an innocent man jailed back in Candy Streets, and has been an aspect of her character since her first appearance, where she was more interested in partying and gossip than curing Jake's lumps. Yet despite her usual behavior appearing yet again in this episode, the tone behind it all is different. LSP has a self-aware monologue about how she doesn't have what it takes to show the sort of restraint one needs to have when in love, just before trying to immolate Princess Bubblegum. That she wanted to go back in time twice to undo her earlier mistakes in life shows that she knows she's doing things wrong, very wrong, and so the audience is able to sympathize with her. We wouldn't go quite as far as she ever has, but everyone's done something dumb in the heat of passion. But the thing about this episode is that it very briefly shows Lumpy Space Princess as more than she is. For a moment, she has a normal romantic relationship, at least as normal as things can get in OO. She finally found the love she's been fruitlessly chasing for the entire show, and then because of who she is as a person, threw it all away over nothing. LSP is doomed to fail at her attempts to be happy. She knows it's her fault, she keeps dooming herself, and there's practically nothing she can do about it. A once obnoxious character is now tragic, something Adventure Time's done before. Lemonhope. Lemonhope is plagued by nightmares while sleeping through a class on the propaganda sent out by Fat Lemon Grab about how the lemon people are happier without Lemonhope. Princess Bubblegum tries to give Lemonhope a more hands-on lesson about why his role as the savior of the lemon people is important, showing him their oppression firsthand. But Lemonhope refuses this task, running away to be free as he wants to be, playing his flute and harp for the animals. He sees a city on fire with the crew of pirates sailing away, following this ship and climbing aboard, where he sleeps below deck with a blanket of rats. But this ship crashes, marooned in the desert, and Lemonhope spends several weeks with more nightmares about Princess Bubblegum telling him he's unacceptable. He wakes up to find he's juiced the last of his limes wandering into the desert before passing out on fire. Lemonhope wakes up to a shower of water from a nearby cloud, piloted by Flannel Boxing Day, who takes Lemonhope in as they fly about. The two take out a flying greed lord, which crashes and drops tiny lemon people as Lemonhope demands that he stop to help them. But these lemon people are actually pieces of gold, Flannel's source of income. After several more nightmares about Fat Lemon Grab and the people he's eaten, Lemonhope asks Flannel to take him back to the earldom of Lemon Grab, so he can finally fulfill his duties to save the people there. He climbs the walls where he's confronted by the Fat Lemon Grab, who's plugged his ears to prevent the harp from affecting him. But the other Lemon Grab unplugs these ears, and Lemonhope plays a song that encourages the rest of the lemon people to hold him down before the Fat Earl explodes. Lemonhope then has another dream, this one not a nightmare, before waking up to see Princess Bubblegum sewing the thin Lemon Grab back together as she asks him to stay and be the champion of the lemons. But Lemonhope refuses this honor, roaming the world freely for the next 1,000 years, watching the world grow and fall before returning to the empty earldom and returning to his bed. Lemonhope spent the first part of his life locked away in the earldom, never experiencing any freedom of his own until he was saved by Finn and Princess Bubblegum. After experiencing freedom for the first time, he becomes obsessed with it to a dangerous point, where he refuses to go back to save the people who sacrificed so much to give him that freedom. Lemonhope has a point. To truly appreciate freedom, one must be allowed to exercise that freedom to any extent. Obviously, it's wrong to deny others their own liberties, as Fat Lemon Grab was doing, but what's less obvious is the fact that you can deny people these liberties by not preserving them as well. The cost of freedom is constant vigilance, as those who don't fight for freedom rarely get to express it for long. Lemonhope embodies political apathy, despite so many others doing so much for him, that it isn't until he learns to appreciate the sacrifice of others that he finally understands the value of this sacrifice. But before learning this lesson, he fails in his life repeatedly, because he doesn't seem to understand that there's a lesson to be learned at all. He goes from living his life locked in the Lemon Grab bathroom and having his instruments smashed, to living his life covered in rats while starving in the desert. To him, an improvement. There was a brief moment where he lived in the Candy Kingdom, but he still wasn't free. He was restricted by the expectations others placed on him. Realistic expectations, but expectations nonetheless. Joining with the pirates and getting stranded are technically expressions of freedom, even if they aren't very good ones. Freedom means the freedom to do the wrong thing as much as it means to do the right one. And as much as one can do the right or wrong thing, one can also choose to do these for the right or wrong reasons. Lemonhope does eventually return to the Candy Kingdom, not because he wants to repay a debt or do the right thing, but because he wants to stop having nightmares about the fact that he didn't. It is a selfish thing to do, even if it does have a positive consequence in the end, and perhaps it's better if systems are in place to encourage selfishness if it does wind up in the public interest. People naturally care about themselves more than others, but if the fate of one person is tied to the fate of a group of people, then the selfish thing to do is to make the world a better place. Lemonhope follows the hero's journey story archetype, where he begins by receiving a call to action from Princess Bubblegum that he rejects, escaping into the wilderness when he gets mentorship from Flannel Boxing Day, before returning, facing off against a supreme antagonist, and then finally returning home to see things are too different to accept staying, wandering into the sunset to continue living the ideals he has now both lived and fought for. Billy's Bucket List. Finn is rapping against Rap Bear, winning and causing the bear to grow depressed until Finn says Rap Bear is his hero now that Billy is dead. But as he's walking away from the stage, he's confronted by Canyon, Billy's ex-girlfriend, and she gives Finn Billy's old loincloth. The two go back to Billy's crack, where they chase out some fairies before pondering the last few years of Billy's life, like how Canyon broke up with him because he had gotten lazy and complicit in his heroism. They then discover Billy's bucket list, with the tasks to tell Finn that thing and to take Canyon on one last ride. Finn and Canyon ride around, chased by monsters before destroying the motorcycle and parting ways. Finn then discovers one final task, to float in the ocean on his back. Finn tries to check this last item off, but the Fear Feaster returns, taunting him for being unable to conquer his fear of the ocean. As before, Finn knocks himself out and falls into the water, dreaming of underwater cities and giant whales before waking up terrified. The Fear Feaster laughs at him a bit more before Finn's grass sword manifests itself and slices through the thing, ridding Finn of his fear of the ocean for good. After lying on his back and finally relaxing, Finn sees Billy appear in the stars, as he thanks Finn for checking everything off his bucket list. He then tells Finn that thing. He must go to the Citadel, because that's where his father is, not Joshua, his human father. The second half of Season 5 of Adventure Time has been defined by Finn's relationship with the Flame Princess, despite Flame Princess no longer feeling the same way about him. His actions are those of someone investing more effort into pretending things are fine than to actually trying to be fine. Finn is stuck living in the past, but winds up finding a cure to this by living even further in the past, beyond this season, and back to when he still looked up to Billy. Finn spends some time living the life of a man he used to model his behavior after, and ends up able to clear his head for the first time in a while, at least clear his head in a healthy way. He remembers what it was that he originally wanted to do with his life, and finally achieves the change he wanted by going backwards. sometimes if you hit a dead end, you need to back up before you can go forward again. Also returning to form is Finn confronting the ocean again. His fear of the ocean is due to the fact that he was separated from his family at a very young age by tall waves. This was something planned about his character from the beginning of the show that never really got that much development, as the details of Finn being the only human around were decided upon. One might even consider this idea as a retcon, just one that makes the show more interesting and thus gets away with it. It's fitting that Finn is given a hint about his family when he finally gets over his fear of the thing that separated him from his family in the first place.